Good morning, Grant.
Good morning. And a beautiful morning it is, isn't it?
It is a beautiful day here in Locksport. Another sunny, sun-filled, beautiful day.
Bird-filled day. I can hear them starting already. They know we've got the camera running.
Yeah, the magpies are in the background. They probably won't get involved as much as the cockatoos.
Yeah.
Because they tend to kind of just sit in the background. They don't really want to be...
Yeah. They're quiet achievers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I had a really good night's sleep, and I had a lot of time to think about a lot of the things that we spoke about yesterday. And this morning, it sort of came to me that one of the key things that came up during our discussions is that mBraining has been really seriously well researched, and there just seems to be a lot of substance to what it is that ended up in the book. And chapter 6 talks about things that are probably going to be new to a lot of people. Some of the stuff that we've spoken about is going to be new to a lot of the people that come across the book. And one of the topics, or one of the things that chapter 6 talks about, is neural integration blocks. So that's a pretty, it's a pretty far out concept. For me to hear, when I heard that the first time, I was kind of like, wow, what is a neural integration block? So give us a bit of an insight. What is a block? What stops us from being able to integrate?
Yeah. Now we've kind of, in a sense, just answered the question. A block, or as I prefer to think of it, is denominalize it back to the verb form. Neural integration blocking. It's how you're blocking integrating. So. In some ways, I think, for me, a way of thinking about it that makes it easy to think about is, if you think about it as you've got these three brains, potentially more. Neuroscience has validated 3 at the moment. Okay. So you've got these 3 brains. Think about them like 3 people, like the ancient wisdom traditions, 3 souls. So think about them as 3 people. How could 3 people, if they were working together on a team, how could they block communication, alignment, agreement with each other? Different ways in which, given that each has its own way of communicating and way of its own language and its own domain of expertise, you could see how, if say those 3 people, one in this team, so there was a team that was heading out for an expedition into the forest, and one of them is the cook. Deals with the food, and looking after the food. And if that person decided they didn't want to play the game right now, they were really pissed off with the other 2, so to speak, they could stop cooking. Right? Just not produce any food right now. Or do it, but really grumble about it. Right? Or etc., etc. So the ways in which these neural networks can block are ways in which they can refuse to accept, allow, or pass on communication.
Right.
To process that communication.
So stop talking or stop
processing, stop listening, stop talking, different aspects based on. So there are different sorts of ways in which the head can do blocking, the heart can do blocking, the gut can do blocking. There's common patterns to them all because they're all neural networks, and there is individual things because they're very different neural networks. The heart is a very different neural network to the gut. The gut is a very visceral neural network that's distributed throughout the wall of the whole of the intestinal and visceral area, whereas the heart brain is all clustered around the heart. It's not distributed through a bunch of plumbing in the same way. So there's different ways in which each of these brains can do their blocking. Ultimately, it comes down to, like I was jokingly saying yesterday in some of the interviews, it could be like, a teenage child going to a parent, and your lips are moving, but I'm hearing la 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 la. So it's how the brains can do blocking.
Right, okay.
And it plays out, pragmatically in a coaching scenario or a communication scenario, where if you're trying to get integration, you're working to get integration for the person, and you want to get a message from, say, the head to the gut about a new way of thinking or a new way of doing. If the head's come up with a creative new way to do something that makes sense to solve this, emergent solution to solve this problem, and you're trying to swallow that idea down to the gut. one of the ways the gut can block that from coming down is to armour in neural networks of co-innovation, to literally send a signal back going, you're trying to send me this signal, but I'm telling you I'm not going to accept it. I can't swallow that idea.
Right.
And literally you hear, well, people say that. They'll say, I'm trying to, because you ask people to, to breathe this idea up into their head and then down. And when you're getting somebody to visualise breathing, kinesthetics and visually, maybe adding, all those neural integrative engagements, and adding symbols, adding imagery, adding brightness and colour, and imagine this, coloured light travelling down through your body to your gut. They're just ways to get the head brain to start to, in the deeper motor maps, send signals from the homunculus down the central sulcus, the sensory motor strip, into the deeper motor maps in the insula and the act, to send those signals then down the vagus nerve channels, down the nerve connections down into the heart and gut region. So as you imagine this light coming down and breathing it down, that keeps that whole breathing process flowing, you're actually getting neural firing. But if the gut's going, I'm not going to accept that, right? People will literally go, I feel I can't. It's like it's stuck in my throat. It's like it's. If I had to say, it's like my gut won't swallow that idea. And people literally say that to you with no prompting whatsoever. And you could, these are common ways.
I can't digest this.
I can't digest this. And they literally will. If you calibrate, you'll see people. You'll see tension in the throat. You see the muscles start to armour, the blood. You'll see colour changes in the vasculature of around the neck and stuff as people. Literally, or if it's something that they're trying to get to the heart will send a signal into the gut to say no, and the gut will send a signal up and block. So you will literally see these things, and then you've got to figure out how you're going to get that, and get past that.
As a coach, how are you going
to get that person
facilitate
that integration?
Right.
Because sometimes it's not that the idea isn't actually ecological and valid. It's just the gut from an early childhood learning experience that might have been exceptionally intense and pivotal caused the gut to go, that's it, I'm protecting myself at all costs from now on. Anything that's at all of that class of information, I will never listen to. Right? And it's almost like the gut stayed at the age of whatever. If you say you were 8 years old when you had this incredibly intense, life-threatening situation, it's like the gut stayed at an 8-year-old gut level.
Right.
And never upgraded its wisdom, its knowledge base.
Right.
And so it's stuck as a
So
rather immature child like gut.
So what was good for
an 8-year-old for that situation to help them survive
okay.
is not that things have moved on. You're now an adult with a lot more competency skills. You're in a different environment, different situation.
There's no threat.
No threat now, and you've got competencies to transcend the sort of threat that might have been. And now you still spend your whole life gut reacting to stuff like an 8-year-old. And I've seen this happen again and again and again. I've seen it in aspects of my own family, for example, that went through the war as young children. My grandparents were young adults, my auntie, uncle, etc. They were young children during the war in Europe, and they saw horrible things, including like my grandfather was taken by the Russians off to Siberia and stuck in a concentration camp, salt mine. Where ultimately he died. So they saw horrific things, and it caused them to armour at a gut level around certain sorts of things and organise their behaviour ongoingly, even around things like food. So they would overeat because they had these times of absolute starvation to near death during the war. And then when they got to Australia, once the war was over, they made a decision at a gut level to never, ever not eat. They would always eat first food. They would eat every single bit of it and then more, just in case. Now they're in Australia. It's a land of plenty and post-war. And there's no other wars on the horizon. It's time to stop eating like that. But my grandfather ended up being he was my step-grandfather. My real grandfather was in Siberia dead. My grandmother married again, but another Estonian, right? And so who'd come through the same experience. He was a huge man. Hugely obese. My grandmother was a huge woman, hugely obese. My auntie was, etc. All these people made these decisions back when they were very young, and it carried on and on and on. Even in a new environment, this is that neuroplasticity we were talking about. In the face of an environmental change, you still hold patterns constant.
Right.
And one of the ways you hold patterns constant is to block any new information.
Right.
So you do this nibbing, blocking.
So you change to stay the same.
Some people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I see. I do a lot of work, and have done a lot of work in the past around change and change management, change mastery. And I remember working in this one of Australia's largest banks organisation, doing some consulting. I was running some change mastery workshops, largely based on NLP ideas, whereas of course now I've added NBIT into change mastery, change management, so that you really can embrace change. Because when you understand that a lot of change has been blocked through cognitive dissonance, and that disonancing occurs at a heart and gut level around values and core identity threat. So it's taken my work to a whole new level. But I remember there was this one person who'd been in the bank for many years, and I'd been consulting at various levels in the bank across many of its different departments and business units. And I'd seen this guy in his career for like 15 years. When I first met him, he was on fast track to senior executive level. He was a middle manager and he was working his way up through the power structure. But he was very fixed and rigid in his ways, and he really wasn't somebody who embraced change easily. And over the years, I watched him, everything about him stayed the same. He still wore the same business suit. Now, you can't wear the same business suit, because obviously he'd replace it. You can't wear a business suit for 15 years, 5 days a week. You wear them now, right? So
that'd be a bit smelly.
Oh, of course. So but 15 years later, he's still dressing exactly the same
style.
Which is not an easy thing to do, because you try finding someone to make you and tailor you those sorts of suits. You really got to be pretty stuck in your ways to still be. He still had the same hairstyle, even though for 15, 20 years hairstyles completely changed. He walked the same, he talked the same, he acted the same, and he acted that way, of course, in regards to the business. But the business of banking has changed massively in the last 15, 20 years. So he'd become marginalised by senior. They basically said, no, he's no longer on senior track, and they put him off to one side. He ended up being somebody who was quite devalued in the organisation and therefore very unhappy. And for a lot of the people in this workshop, they were saying, well, this guy, person X, he's the sort of person who needs this. And I said, no, he's a change master. They said, what? I said, no, he's a change master. He already is an expert at mastering change, except that he changes to stay the same.
Wow.
And when you think about it, in a world of massive ongoing change, which the bank was, and society was, and business was over the last 15, 20 years, for the guy to still be able to be exactly the same, he had to be able to be reverse adaptive.
Adapt,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, he had to continue to adapt in ways that kept him constant, even in the face of it marginalising him and him being unhappy, etc. He still was able to continue to, rather than just drift with the change, like do nothing and you would have drifted with the change, but he had to actively undo change in order to stay the same. Now, he had the process of change mastery. He just had very ineffective content in his life.
Right.
What you want is good content. That is, you want to embrace the change. Be a change master at embracing change, not a change master at resisting change.
So same skills, different outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Different content leads to different outcome.
Yeah.
You need both the process and the content to be, aligned towards the outcome you want, and you will then start. And so it's the same with these neural networks, and it involves these neural networks in the way that you work. The neuroplasticity can work for you or against you.
Right.
And what you want to do is make it work
for
you. So you want to remove the blocking. You want to recognise it for what it is. Accept the communication for what it's trying to achieve. It's blocking for a reason.
So in the gut, for example, it's trying to protect you in some kind of way.
That's right. So you acknowledge that protection, and then you thank it, communicate with it to say, now, if we get whatever it is the outcome that you want to achieve, whatever your criteria is, whatever it is you're attempting to do, if we can do this, if we accept this new information, if we incorporate, you want protection. How about this great new idea that the head wants to deliver to you, for you to get that motivation, that motility, that mood, take action on, and to accept that a core identity, a gut level. If we add in anything to do with protection that you want, if we really make this so that it's safe, a safe way, that we've got different options, and we'll really monitor that threat. Will you accept this idea? And then as soon as you do that, the gut will usually go, yeah.
Right.
As you've acknowledged what I want. That's all I was trying to say. I was blocking because I felt that you weren't, you were going to do something radical. It might be dangerous, and kick us back to. Now, that's one way in which you can remove blocking, just by incorporating the criteria for each of the brains.
Right.
It's it's not that you kind of have to try and negotiate and find some sort of middle ground. It's that you want to incorporate. They've got valid concerns. They're doing their prime functions. They might be doing it in a childish way, but you want to acknowledge that.
Right.
Now, there are times when you need to grow the brain up. You actually literally got to give it new reference structure experiences because it hasn't had them because it's been blocking for X number of years. The story in one of the early conversations and that we talk about in mBraining is of the girl who decided at that young age to never trust or listen to her heart again, and then used her gut in place of her heart.
Right.
Right? That heart hasn't been listened to, acknowledged, utilised for 20 years. You're going to have to start helping that heart come back to reference structure experiences that say it's safe to trust your heart. The heart can be involved in this.
Right.
Right? And so in that way, you might have to do what Milton Erickson used to do. And Milton Erickson, as you know, is from Ericksonian hypnosis. He was one of the foremost medical hypnotists in the world. Considered to be, one of the top hypnotists in the world. And he used to do things called generative tasking. He would task his clients with activities that, by the nature of doing the activity, would help grow their ways of being up. Give them more reference structures, give them wiser ways of knowing and doing in the world. So you might have to, somebody with a heart level, you might have to get them involved in something that is safe. They can start to trust their heart. That would connect them with others in ways. Small steps, but something that maybe you could ask them to go and do a little bit of stuff in hospitals with young children, where they go in and do some, philanthropic work to go and work with young children who've got cancer and do something like that. So that really grips their heart. It's something they access their heart. They get in touch with compassion for others who are in a bad place, and they start to then build relationships and relationships of trust.
Right.
Of course, it might not be with young cancer, children, because someone might die and then it might break their heart. So you'd have to pick something that would be, for whatever that, you'd have to craft a generative experience and get the person, and it might take months for this person to start upgrading. But once you open the floodgates, once you open the acceptance of the importance and the power of coming back to the heart, things happen quickly. Neuroplasticity, new neurons, and new dendritic connections can grow very, very quickly, as Dr. Michael Mercenary points out.
Yeah.
So it literally could be over a period of 3 months, 6 months. You could completely, reorganise the way that person is mBraining their life, and then they'll reconnect up.
And the way they're expressing their heart, for example.
Their heart will just start to flourish.
Right.
And then that'll start creating self-fulfilling prophecies in their relationships with others. People start responding more positively to them because previously they were very heartless.
Right.
And next thing, the whole world just starts to reorganise generatively and change. So that's another important aspect of what you might have to do once you've acknowledged whatever it is that was going on in the first place.
Right.
And incorporated that. And then the third way is sometimes the brain is literally just doing the la 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 la. It's just not going to listen to anything. You can't even get anything out of it other than la 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 la, right? Because it just made that decision. Never going to talk again. Not being honoured. Not trusted. And then sometimes you kind of have to force the signal through. If the signal when it comes through is actually ecological, if the gut brain can accept it, but it couldn't accept it to begin with because it wasn't listening to it.
Right.
So you couldn't, you could have the equivalent of the teenager or the young child going la 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 la, right? You could be going, do you want an ice cream? And they're just going la 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 la. You want an ice cream? La 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 la. If you can just pull their finger out there, you want an ice cream? Oh yes, please. Right. So sometimes it's like that. And I had a graphic example of that in some coaching I was doing with a young woman, and we speak about it in mBraining, as you know, and she had been seriously injured as a teenage girl, beaten to a pulp, and actually she was beaten so badly and her spine was damaged so badly that she was paraplegic, and they said she'd never walk again, but she's incredibly strong personality, incredibly strong will that she has, and she said no, she refused to accept that she'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. So it took her 12 months to get up and walking again, but she did. She was out of the bed, out of the wheelchair, and walking again, much to the amazement of the medicos. But she lived in pain every day of her life. She had a lot of pain she just had to manage and cope with from the spinal injury. And in the rehab, in trying to get out of that wheelchair, she'd been taught never to do a certain class of exercises, never to move in a certain way, because it could put her back into
a wheelchair.
And so she lived for the last 20 odd years with this sense of... Now, medicine moved on, and with evidence-based medicine, they discovered that certain classes of exercise could help people with her sort of spinal injury. So, the doctor's saying...
Don't go down there.
No, well, her doctor's saying, here's these new exercises, we want you to do them. They'll probably help you to be largely pain-free. And she's going, great, great, great. And she works, at the time she was working in the medical field. And so she'd looked into all of this evidence-based medicine and checked it out and said, yeah, they're right? This looks like all the evidence is, the research is, that if I do these exercises... So she was trying to do the exercise, but every time she tried to do the exercise, she was feeling really nauseous, to the point where she pushed herself to do it more. She would actually throw up.
Wow.
And it talk about nibbing, talk about the gut refusing to accept the block, right? It would literally use its communication pattern, reverse peristalsis. She would go and throw up, but she's forceful, she's got a lot of will. So she would throw up in the toilet, and then she would come and continue trying to do the exercise. So she pushed past the throwing up to do the exercises. She actually had days where she would collapse on the ground, not be able to move, and be in bed, unable to move, back being paraplegic for 24 hours, 48 hours. So she was having these experiences where she's going, I can't do the exercise. If I do the exercise, I'm going to be back in a wheelchair. Yeah. Right? So she'd seen to her doctor, she'd been to see psychologists, she knows NLP, and she's got lots of, so she tried NLP with herself, and she knows lots of NLPers, so she got other people trying to work with her. So she tried every avenue she could, and nothing was helping. So she turned to me, because she knew me, and she knew I was working on this new modality, and she said, can you see if there's anything you can do to help me? And as she was explaining all this, and I'm hearing these expressions like the nausea, the throwing up, and and around, it's about movement, motility, but it's also around threat, and threat monitoring, and it's from experience when she was attacked, and the threat, and so the gut brain, right? The gut brain's obviously involved in all of this. So I asked her, and I used the highest expressions. I took up the roadmap and through compassion in your heart, as you feel the feelings of being totally caring and loving of yourself. As you do these new exercises, they're going to allow you to move with freedom and feel completely good. And as you breathe that up into your head, and you add a creative way of being able to do it, and with your head, because you've tested. Let me check. You have tested. And check the science and all this, your absolutely head's completely convinced that this is ecological, it'll work for you, it wouldn't do any damage, your doctors are all cool with this, and you're cool with this, yeah, absolutely. So now as you take these experiences, creative ways to be able to allow yourself to start to do these exercises with love and caring and compassion for yourself, as you breathe this back down into your gut, and I swallow this idea, and she was like, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? She's like, I can't. I said, what's going on? She said, well, it's stuck in my throat. It's like it just won't go down, it's stuck in my throat. So I thought to myself, I knew there's a particular technique from NLP called a kinesthetic interrupt, and I knew there was this co-armoring in the esophagus. So I thought, I wonder if I block the armoring, the kinesthetic armoring, would it open up and allow that signal to come down? So I got her to model what she was doing. Now, I was doing this bit of coaching over the phone because I live 4 hours from Melbourne. She'd run me up and said, I want to do it now. I said, well, can you wait until a couple of months till I'm back in Melbourne? No, please, I need to do it now. All right, well, let's try doing it over the phone, right? And so a bit of phone coaching. So I told her what to do to model the way that she was doing the blocking in her throat. And then to go at orthogonal, to do a kinesthetic interrupt, orthogonal to right angles to the way. So she does that, and then she has to do, and you have to make a sound. The sound actually adding an extra modality, sensory modality, really makes a difference to this. And so she does this, it goes, ka-ch, right? And strangely enough, it seems like a really weird thing that you can take a feeling, and this will work in any part of your body for any sort of feeling. The only thing we've found that it doesn't really work for is temperature. If you've got a temperature in your body, like a feeling of heat or cold, and so that doesn't seem to work in the same way. But for any other sort of feeling, like if you had butterflies before a talk, you could model the butterflies. So, if I asked you, if you were feeling a particular feeling, Bill, and I said, show me what that feeling's like with your hands, right, out in front of you. Say it was the butterflies. Show the audience here what the butterfly, how you were butterflying back when you did that first talk, say.
So the butterflies in my stomach would, they wouldn't be very pretty. They'd be kind of like all over the place, and not a very nice sort of beautiful flight.
So
they'll kind of
like that.
like that, yeah.
Right now,
and they're just sort of going around in circles and doing that.
Okay, so I hope you could all see that. Now, Bill, if I said you were modelling that and that's how you're doing it, right? If I said, but don't do it like that, do it like that.
Right.
Does that match with the way it felt? Is that right?
No, that's different.
That's not the same thing, is it? Right?
No.
If I said just do it like that,
no, it's different.
it's different again, right? And it's fascinating that when we use our hands, we literally are modelling what's going on inside ourselves, outside of ourselves, right? And it's like the hand on your heart where you feel that feeling. You move it, half an inch up, and it's not right. It's this kinesthetics, this modelling, and what you're doing when you're doing this is your gestures and stuff are actually causing, there's down the central sulcus, down this part of the head brain, there's a sensory and motor strips that represent what's called the little man, the homunculus. It's actually upside down, so the head's down here and the feet are up here. But it's the upside down of your body, of every single nerve through your body going up there. So when you move your body, the reason your body's moving is because the little man sensory motor strips are firing to fire the motor neurons, and the sensory neurons are sending feedback up to go, oh yes, the hand moved exactly how much we thought it did and didn't do, and so you get all that sort of stuff. Deeper within, connected to this sensory motor strip, there's little sensory motor in the insular and the anterior cingulate cortex of what's going on viscerally inside you, the gut and heart and etc., all coming up through the more reptilian parts of the head, running into the limbic areas, which is where the insula and the ac are in. So when you're firing this stuff, you are actually firing off all of the neural circuitry involved in those internal feelings, as you represent. That's why if you do it bigger, or if I went, do it that way, is that, do those butterflies up and down that way, you go, no, that's not what it was, it was that way. So when someone's doing that, they're literally re-experiencing inside, the neurons are firing, they're amplifying it by doing it through these feedback, feed-forward loops. And so when so if you were doing that, right, and so your butterflies are kind of like flying in formation there, and I go, so what happens, Bill, when I do this?
Well,
right, now, I don't know whether you could see his face then, but even though we were doing it kind of for just fun and not even a real situation, something went on there, because I saw you go, that felt weird, right?
Right, it did, felt weird.
Yeah. Now, the truth is that if then you say, now, Bill, attempt to get back those old butterfly feeling.
Right. So it has changed. It's not the same
see
pattern.
It's not the same speed, it's not the same pattern, it's not as big, right? But it's changed, it's gotten less, I would guess, because of the size. And so if you did what it is with less, and I go, so what happens now when I go, shh?
Well, it's changed again.
And you just swallow, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
it's changed again, and it still has been difficult for me to get back to that stage. It's even harder now for me to get back to there.
To remember exactly.
Because I've quite overcome that anyway. But when we're talking about me trying to sort of even imagine being in that space, it's a lot different. And I couldn't even really, if you ask me to do it again now, I don't think there's a version of my representation that I could show you. I don't think
and even your hands then, and now they've got this nice sort of
flowing.
It's completely changed, right? Of course, I always like to, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So I always like to do a minimum 3, because the rule of 3. So typically takes 3 is the minimum required to form a generalization in the unconscious patterning system of the mind body. So just move your hands like that, and we'll just go shh. It's worth doing for that time. And so you probably find now that it feels completely flowing, and and of course you'd already overcome it anyway. So next time you go to a talk, you'll find that it just feels so flowing, so easy, so good to do that talk, because even the vestiges of that old memory are gone now. It's recoded, it's changed. It's like the neural network said, well, I had a choice in that situation to respond this way, and now I've got a choice. In that situation, I didn't have any other choice. I only responded that way. Now I've got 2 choices. 3 choices. I got the choice to do that, a little bit less, completely flowing. Well, which is your neural network's going to pick? It's going to pick the one that's the most flowing, because now you've got a reference structure. For what it felt like to feel. So we interrupted that way of blocking, of kinesthetic in, and we've opened up a new one. So I got this girl to do this and do shh, and next thing, all I heard was the sound of her dropping the phone, and a body falling to the floor, and laughing, belly laughing. and a huge burp, like this huge burp. That's the biggest burp you've ever heard. Belly laughing, and I'm going, get back to the phone, come on. She comes up to the phone, because I'm thinking fall to the floor. When I first heard the sound of the phone in the floor, I was like, oh my God, it's kicked her into some sort of paraplegia, momentary paraplegia. But then when I heard the huge burp and the belly laughing, I'm like, oh no, that was a release. Oh, right. So she gets back to the phone, she goes, oh, that was amazing. That was incredible. As soon as I did it, as soon as I did that, the signal went down to my belly accepted it completely. She said, I just fell off the chair, and this huge burp, which made me belly laugh. She said, oh, that was incredible. I said, all right, well, it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. So, let's start working through it. She goes, no, we don't need to. I said, well, I really like to do it at least a couple of times. She goes, no, we don't need to. So, talk to me about it. She goes, no, it's all done now. It's my gut completely accepts it. I can do the exercises. Not a problem. It's all good. I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, all right, well, I'm going to check on you, in a day's time, in a week's time, in a month's time, 6 months' time, in a year's time, and to see how you're going and make sure everything's ecological and everything's good. Because this was early days, and my research and with mBraining, and I checked back, and she was able to do the exercises from that moment on, do them with ease and flow. That she lives largely pain-free now. It's completely changed her life. Right. And subsequently she became an MBIT coach. Right. She loved MBIT that much. Yes. And so it's a beautiful example of how she'd been through doctors and physiologists and psychologists and NLPers. No one was able to help get that shift because of the blocking, which no one was able to pick up, that there was this blocking at the gut level of this thing, and the gut was holding that motility of no, and I'm going to make sure you can't do these exercises. Right. But it was just doing la 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 la. It wouldn't even listen to the message. Yeah. As soon as we opened up the channels to let the message come through, it accepted the message. It went, oh, okay, all right. Well, in that case, I do want the ice cream. So that's in certain circumstances. As our last port of call with removing blocks, it's worth a try. I can promise you this: that if the message is still unecological, the gut will refuse it. If you open the thing up, it'll just go, it'll probably, in a sense, it would probably go, if the throat was blocking and you opened it up, the message went through and it really rejected it, you probably would actually throw up, right? Because it would reject that idea. There'd be a little, something came up in my mouth, Yeah. In which case, that's a message. Honour it. If you actually, got it through, then you have to go, so what's the gut saying? It's not, about this, what message does it have for you? And then you ask that information, and then you keep coaching through to find, well, so given that that's what the gut needs, how can we incorporate that in this too? Because once you've opened up the channels of communication, once you've got past that, there's a reason why I'm not listening. It might just be, I had a bad experience when I was 14 and being beaten to near to death, and made a paraplegic. I never want to go back there, so I'm not going to listen to anything at all at a gut level that could even begin to take me back there. Yeah. That's right. So.
Well, that's pretty amazing stuff. So, what I'm curious to know, well, I do know the answer, but I'm going to ask you as if I don't again, because it's not about me, it's about the people watching. There'll be people watching that don't want to be a coach. Yeah. There'll be people watching that will read the book and want to know how they could sort of go about running kind of some of these exercises on themselves. Yes. That's possible, right? You can.
Absolutely. Well, I've got people from all around the world who have emailed me or Facebook messaged me after reading the book, because we have the URL for the website and stuff in the book. So they've read the book, because there are no coaches across that side of the planet. These are from all sorts of countries. Yeah. And the Middle East, Russia, all sorts of places where we just don't have anyone doing trainings or coaches yet. Yes. And they've read the book, and because as you know, in the book we've got lots of exercises. At least the first 8 or 9 of those exercises we've actually created MP3s and have on our website available for free. Right. Where Marvin's beautiful dulcet tones, guide people through the exercises. So you literally can grab the book and work your way through the exercises and do this stuff for yourself. Right. Absolutely. I've got people who are coaches, because we speak for WBEX, the World Business Executive Coaching Summit, the premier summit for business executive coaches every year, has 10, 20,000 people. I think Ben Croft, the guy who runs WBEX, said that this year he believes he'll have 20,000 people signed up for WBEX, 20,000 coaches. So it's a huge coaching cohort. People around the world have heard us do a 1-hour talk, gone and grabbed the book, and then started using that in their coaching practice. Of course, as you know, we didn't bring it out this morning, but I also wrote a coaching workbook that it deepens the coaching practice. It treats the NBIT roadmap and the NBIT toolkit, which is chapter 8, which we'll be, I guess, talking about in the next couple of these segments, as a competency hierarchy, and it has exercises to help a coach get their client to unpack their underlying patterns and processes of each of the competencies of autonomic mode, autonomic reactivity, the communication between the brains, the trust between the brains, the integration of the brains, the highest expressions, the wisdoming in your life, all of these things to deepen that practice. And there's a facilitator's guide, and there's a webinar series that you can get hold of. So there are tools available for people who can't get to a coach cert.
Right.
Now, personally, I think even if you don't want to become a formal coach, coming to the 4-day program is amazing, because not only do you have a nice, safe practice environment to practice step by step in an easily chunked, safe environment to learn the skills with feedback and debriefing and resources there in case you do something silly and you need some help. But there's also the fact that you get to experience being coached through these processes. And we've had, in the early days of NBIT, because Martin's one of the top NLP trainers in the world, we had a lot of people come to our trainings who are NLP trainers, NLP master trainers. Some of the top personal development trainers in the world have come and been trained in NBIT now. And these are people who are not naive to personal development experience, right? They've gone through a lot in their life, and they've said and found that the experience of the 4-day NBIT coach cert was profound and transformational for them. That they didn't realise how transformational. They just thought, I'm going to come and learn a new set of tools to add to their toolkit of this new modality that Marvin's into. What they didn't recognise is that they were going to get profound transformational change themselves
as well,
and that's what they experienced. And that is something, I think, that speaks a lot for the power of this knowledge, these extra distinctions of what happens when you connect up the head, heart and gut. That a lot of other modalities try to leverage from the neck down, the heart and gut, but they do so with blunt instruments, whereas we have, because of the neuroscience basis,
really
because of the 6,000-7,000, scientific papers that I've read and summarised and brought together, it's synthesised into this model, and the behavioural modelling that came out of, the guidance of that science, it has allowed us to have what seems to be a very simple, yet is an incredibly profound tool. And that experience of being in the room to get that, I think is priceless. So even if you don't want to become a formal
experience.
exactly. So even if you don't want to become a formal coach, I mean, you didn't come along to the coach cert
to
because you want to become a coach.
No.
So you just said, Dave said to you, come along. This will be good for you, right? And
he was right.
He was right. And he was just doing it on intuition because he hadn't seen it either. He was coming along too, right? It's just that he knew Marvin, and he was, so impressed by what Marvin could do in training rooms that he just said, if it's a Marvin Oka training, I'm coming along. And by the way, dude, you should come along too, right? And I do believe I think Dave had read the book as well, and he was blown away by it. So that's why he organised the training. He organised for you to be there. You didn't want to be a formal coach.
No,
not at all. And yet, it was profound for you what you were going through, post stroke, post the brain bleed, and so now you loved it so much you're an NBIT trainer. You want to share it with other people's other people's lives and help make a difference. So I do believe that people can come along and just experience 4-day coach from the perspective of you're always coaching yourself. So you learn the tools to use on yourself. Of course, a little ad here. There is a 2-day program called Evolve Your World, which Bill's a trainer, and other trainers, other NBIT trainers are also licensed to do the 2-day Evolve Your World, and that's a personal evolution training. That's actually designed to give people a taste of the experience of coming to highest expression in themselves, of being completely aligned. So you come to a training, you learn about the multiple brains, and then you get aligned, facilitated in the room, and you really get to deeply explore what it means to be the highest expression of yourself, and then how you'll apply that in your life moving forward out of that 2 days. From that, you might uncover that you've got some NIBs, some experiences that you go, I'd like to get more. Then you can actually go get some formal NBIT coaching, because there's lots of licensed coaches out there now. Or you might go, I want to come to the NBIT coaching cert to learn those skills more, whether I become a formal coach or not, or whether I just want to use it as a manager, as a leader, as a member of a team, with my children, etc. and just to deepen your understanding. So, yeah, good
Well,
question. Hope I gave it a good answer.
No, I think you did it justice. We are probably going to wrap up this episode. Another awesome opportunity to talk about mBraining. And for the people that are watching, you can go to mBraining.com and have a look at, which tab is it for the free downloads?
I think it's the resources tab.
The resources tab. Go to the resources tab and have a look at the MP3s that you can download. You can also buy the book in Kindle format.
Yeah, Kindle format, and it's I made it so cheap that it's like the price of a good cup of coffee.
Well, it's about
So,
$6 or $7.
$6, $5.99, something like that, whatever
Yeah.
it is. I wanted to keep the price so low that anyone anywhere on the planet could afford to buy a copy of it. You know, the print book's a little bit more, but you know, for us, it was writing the book was never going to be about making money out of the book. So we really just want to make it accessible to everybody. It's priceless information, and we wanted to keep the value proposition really, really low. So you know, you can grab the Kindle book. Even if you don't have a Kindle, Amazon have free Kindle reading software for every single device.
It works on iPad.
It works on iPad, iPhones, Android. It works on your PC, on a browser.
Right.
There's just so many ways you could read that book. And so for $5.99, $6.99, whatever it is, $6, you know, and that's US dollars. So you grab a copy, have a read. Personally, I like the physical book.
Yeah.
There's
always
because
something
for,
about a book, isn't
for
there?
non-fiction, you can put highlighters and tabs. I know
Yeah.
I can do that in my Kindle too, but it's not as easy to flick through, etc.
Yeah.
So I like both, and that was the other reason I kept the price low for the Kindle. Is that if you bought the physical book and you just went, I want the electronic book so I can searchable. You know, we didn't put an index in the physical book because with it, for $6 you can buy the Kindle book and it's completely indexed. You know, you search on any term, etc., etc. So we just went, let's keep the Kindle price really, really low, and that way it'll be a useful resource for anyone who's interested in learning more about this head, heart, gut intelligences and how they play out in their life, and what you can do to remove blocks, to integrate them more, and as we'll be coming up in the next segment, to get to the highest expression of who you really are and how you do yourself in your world.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and go to mbraining.com, check out all the tabs and all the links, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.